Hello, and welcome to episode 1 of Rule the Waves 2 Ship Design and Naval Warfare 1900 to 1955. For the inaugural series for Rule the Waves 2, I have chosen to go with the 1900 start. I'm going to go with Germany, which happens to be my favorite nation to play in Rule the Waves 1. Looking through what they have available for Rule the Waves 2, much the same budget, much the same modifiers: cautious, technology leader, bombastic head of state. The research advantages start the same with the armor, the subdivision and damage control, AP projectiles, but then we have naval aviation, lighter than air, missile technology, cross-deck fire is old, and bomb and torpedo. Regardless, this looks to be interesting, and I have kind of an idea of how I want to play this. Everyone is going to be interested in the carrier technology. They're going to be focused on that. I'm going to play this just like I would in Rule the Waves 1, kind of as a little bit of a roleplay situation where, hey, I'm a big gun proponent. We're going to try to keep the battleship going for as long as possible. Not that we're going to ignore carriers, but that they'll play more of a fleet support role rather than an independent striking arm. I want to see how much we can push that to the limit. So you're going to see some unusual designs with this one. Definitely prefer very large fleet sizes, historical resources, and manual build of the legacy fleet. My own name for now. And we'll go ahead and start. So here we are. First thing we'll need to do is to design our first ships. Hit auto design just to get something started. And there's the view I was looking for. I have watched a little bit of some of the preview copies that have been handed out. So I do have some passing familiarity, but not a ton with this. So I'm going to be learning this interface along with the rest of you. So let's look at the primary ones that I was looking for in the old one, in Rule the Waves 1. We're looking at medium range, normal engine priority, for reliable if possible. That's not too heavy a difference. Belt extended I don't think needs to be too strong. I do like to have the splinter guard, which is 2 inches if nothing has changed. Do that for turret tops and the secondaries. There's no torpedo defense yet. Correct. Normal accommodation, no colonial service. And then we not have a 10-inch gun. And we have low quality all the way down to 7-inch. We have our low quality 11-inch gun. Pardon me, my voice is a little bit rough. I'm recovering from a cold. Range 9 and 2. Alright. Decent amount of immunity to start with. Not that it'll stay that way for very long. Especially for these early ships, having a lot of ammo is important. I'll reduce that, but to start with, it's going to be maxed, because I'll recover some of that weight as I design the ship. Just a quick look at some of the aircraft stuff. Alright. Germany does start with quality 1 3-inch guns. I will take advantage of that. Especially as it's very little weight to add that capability. And it helps with the early destroyers. Later on, the 3 inches will lose a lot of their effectiveness. Other than that, I want to compare these values with what we intend to use for our secondaries, which apparently are 7 inches okay to use straight from the beginning. Which I thought it was 6-inch was the limit until you developed heavier secondaries in Rule the Waves 1. But it might be 7. Now, at least. We're looking about 4 inches of penetration at minimum range for the 7-inchers, 4 for the 8-inch. I'm going to bump those up just to see if it, yeah, nothing heavier than 7. 7 is the heaviest secondaries we can use. Pardon me, getting a drink there. Help clear my voice. So we have our two 11-inch turrets. We'll have 6 7-inch on each side. Really like it, get it up to 16, but I don't think we're going to have the weight limit for that. Not if we want to have reasonable armor protection. Which I like the 50% buffer that this has for the belt armor. I'll bump these up a little bit. I think the 7-inch guns, casemate gets some protection from the belt, so the minimum I would consider would be the 2 inches of armor. And that leaves us with 4. That is not much. Get 3, probably 4 aside. Yeah, we can recover that out of the ammo alone. And bring us, I don't like it having it quite that low this early on, but just have a reasonable secondary armament. I think it's advisable that we do that, because these secondaries do a lot more work early on, just because of volume of fire, because the primaries hit so infrequently. Let's see, 168. Yeah, we would have to sacrifice most of the secondary armament to transfer some of these tertiary guns into secondary guns, because these are just so lightweight. Something I have liked noticing is the ship graphic updates dynamically. You don't have to hit the update ship graphic each time you add guns, track them, like you do for the main guns. But it'll at least tack on secondary guns, tear them off as you're doing it. Nice. Now we are going to want to upgrade this rangefinder, and unlike the previous edition, if in Rule the Waves 1, if you reduce the amount of ammo or increased while rebuilding a ship, it didn't cost you any extra time or money. In Rule the Waves 2, just reducing it by 5 rounds per gun, it requires a 12-month refit period while they redesign those ammo boxes. Pardon me for a moment. Alright, here we go. So I'm starting to feel pretty good about this. Pretty slow. Let's see, if we reduce the secondaries down to 8, even 1 knot. It's a legacy pre-dreadnought battleship, so I think we're just going to have to deal with it. They're going to start slow. Could reduce, and then she'll actually make it then, with enough reserve that we'll be able to upgrade the fire control in the future rather than having to rebuild the amount of ammo. I hate reducing those secondaries, but you know what? Yeah, we're going to keep the secondaries. I don't mind her being a little bit slow, but I do want that reliability. And I don't think anything else needs to be done at this point. All that good. A lot of money to start the game, so we'll get at least 2. Sure, and yep, just like Rule of the Waves 1, the amount you can carry over into the actual game is 24 million. Now the Minesweeper got replaced by this Corvette. I'm interested to see what they're going to produce. If they're similar or something completely different. Yeah, we really don't have too much available in here. About expected, 0 quality 4-inch. I find preferable myself. Oops. A lot smaller. I'm curious how fast you can make them. Can't have... See, it's almost a direct conversion. The error message still mentions that they're Minesweepers when they've been relabeled as Corvettes. And their role's been expanded somewhat. But 24 knots. Can't do a low freeboard with that. Don't need a particularly long range. Could do cramped accommodation since they'll be in home waters if we do short. These are just gunboats. And add a belt. Is it limited to 2? Yep. Limited to 2 inches of belt armor. 4-inch guns, I think, is what we're going to have. Add ammunition until full. Now that's not too far from the kinds of Minesweepers I built in Rule the Waves 1. A little bit faster, firm that way. I kinda like just using destroyers to replace Minesweepers. It's more expensive, but they're both so cheap, and the destroyers are actually useful in both roles. But I see making more dedicated kind of destroyer escorts that the US built in World War II, where they're not necessarily as fast as a fleet destroyer, not necessarily as long-legged, and more of a focus on the anti-submarine warfare aspects rather than being a gunboat to duke it out with other destroyers, or with a heavy torpedo armament to threaten capital ships. I do want to see kind of what shall auto-generate. We can't make 600 yet. Or we can. Cannot build destroyers of that displacement. That's what I was expecting. Okay. AA positions you can use as an indication of when it's getting crowded. I mean, center line still has its own crowding effect. We're looking at 500 tons, built for speed, medium, range, normal accommodation, no armor. Would like these to be 4-inch guns, but let's take a look. 8,300 yards. No penetrative ability. 8,900 yards, with starting to have the ability to punch through very light armor, and it'll improve with some technology in AP, armor piercing. Might get rid of one of these. We don't really have the space for. Could we do that? Is that too heavy? Crowded center. Even with one torpedo launcher, that's a crowded center line. I need to have at least one. Oh wow, submerged torpedo mounts for destroyers. I don't think that'd be very useful. I go too fast to use them. I find it interesting that they allow that now. Oops, misaligned that one. Center line, so port and starboard. That should eliminate the crowding on the center line. And can we add a pair of 3-inch? Do we want a pair of 3-inch? Just to duke it out with other destroyers. Puts us kind of low on ammunition. Not gonna have to worry about fire control for destroyers for a while. Yeah, with the weight we have, I'd rather have those two 3-inch guns to help fight other destroyers. Fine with the name for the ship. Could reduce the torpedo armament and just suffer the 20% penalty on rate of fire because of centerline crowding. I don't remember what the centerline mount was. Got rid of the V. I think the Q was the one that we had. Yes. And we get that crowding. Yeah, but we'll have to reduce. If we do. Oh, actually. That's more than 12 tons. Right, because you have an increased complement number of personnel needed. A lot of that's taken up by the guns. Guns and armament and engines make up for a large proportion of the crew requirement. And coincidentally, increasing the amount of monthly cost, maintenance cost. But we can stick 4 3-inch, except that's too heavy because we went into the negatives there. I wonder, a bit silly, and ship type may not have tertiary guns. Okay, we're getting a little bit too silly with this then. I wonder, can we add a gun shield? No. Or that was 1 inch. No, actually. Must have belt armor if it has armored, so there will be no armored turrets for destroyers. Okay. Not something I usually consider in Rule of the Waves 1. I don't know if that is new or not. So I think this will look like. Bring down the ammunition. We're looking at 170 rounds, normal engine priority at 27 knots. Pair of pop guns to help out. Okay, I'm liking this. I think that's going to be our primary destroyer to start. We'll go to the build dialog, grab 12 of these. That's still the limit. Then we have the carriers, AMCs, light cruisers, heavy cruisers. The armored cruiser is definitely useful, especially early on. Later on, they can get less useful. See if we can limit her to 10,000. Can we put them topside to start? Rule of the Waves 1, they weren't even show up there. Yeah, that's what I thought. Of water tubes, not research for heavy ships. I was going to be pretty excited if that was the case. Gun data, looking at the more than 4.5. Bring the extended belt down. Minimize the deck. Turrets look good. Secondaries, I'm looking for splinter guard. We'll probably end up with something lighter than this. Can we do duels? What's the penalty? 40%. That is awful. Too much unused displacement? That's a thing now? Interesting. How are the 5-inch -1 quality? Shorter range than the 4-inch. Interesting. And then the 6-inch has decent quality and is 3 inches of penetration. I think the secondaries are going to be back where they were at 6 inches. So secondaries, double turrets, not looking like that'll be an option. Have those, bring it down to 8. Have a bunch of 4-inch, possibly too much. I may reduce that. It's freed up some. We want to put some of that into ammunition. See if we can. It's going to be hard to balance this. Sacrifice the tertiaries. I'm not as concerned about those. Would like them, kind of designing them to be purpose of these early armored cruisers for me for this playthrough. I'm looking to have one that's good at intercepting the early raiders and still has the armament to be able to threaten other armored cruisers and even some of the pre-dreadnoughts. Not that they'll go toe-to-toe with them, they're not going to be armored enough for that, but they can support a battle line against other pre-dreadnoughts and still have a chance of doing some amount of damage. Like, are they going to penetrate the belt armor on a pre-dreadnought? No. Might they penetrate the extended belt? Absolutely. How much? 700 tons. It's going to be hard to make that up. About we get reliable engines so that they can pursue for long distances. Doable. I think we're going to sacrifice a lot of the armament though. And I don't want to sacrifice the armor at this time. Like, I don't want to go below that. Is she protected against her own guns? Barely, so that won't last long. But that's more than enough against most light cruisers. So we're not throwing any errors. I think this is what she's going to look like. A little bit of a reserve for the fire control, and we'll tear out a gun if we need to. We'll build 2 of those. Now the next question becomes, do we want raiders? If so, how much do we want to get into it? Because if I build a light cruiser as a raider, not really intending to have them be in any sort of fleet combat. DD. What is the minimum weight for a light cruiser? 2600. What is the... That's too many. Rate of fire mod. I'm just kind of curious if we can stick 6-inch guns on this. That way when she is intercepted, we actually have a chance of fighting off any of our opponents. Doubles as well. We'll start with that. Guns. I don't mind if it gets a rate of fire reduction. Do singles on the wing. Let's do 3 sets of wings. How does that work out? Yes, seriously overweight. I get it. Yeah, she's gonna balloon in size here very quickly. What about this is her defense against. I put larger one? Can actually put 8-inch guns. I believe that's the same as Rule the Waves 1. You could stick 8-inch on a light cruiser. You can't do 9-inch. It's a bit silly, and I would say she needs to be larger. 6-inch seems a little bit more realistic. Not very historic. I don't recall any. There probably is some obscure ship out there at the turn of the century that was a light raider cruiser with 6-inch guns, but I don't know of it. We'll do the 4-inch. Get them out of the casemates. Put them on the wings. And that'll be kind of replacing the guns that we had there. Get rid of the deck armor. Keep the conning armor. How much weight am I at? Oh. These aren't going to be very good raiders. Starting to think I'm trying to put too much on the and having our primary armament without any armor. Do I just want to reduce to 4-inch? Let's see, how big will she end up being? $160 rounds, barely enough, 22 knots. She's starting to look a bit big for a raider. So let's reduce to 4-inch primaries. Get rid of the double turrets. We'll do the 3 sets of wings. Doesn't give us much. But I know there's going to be like French armored cruisers out there that are doing 23 knots. I want these to be able to go faster, but I don't think the engine technology is there. So I have the option of doing a fleet support cruiser or kind of an interceptor, or we can just not have any light cruisers to start. I think that's the route I'm going to go. I do like these armored cruisers. I think we want a few more of those. Also, may want to add some coastal fortifications, which I haven't had too many of those in the past, but they are useful. I think I'll pass for now. Focus on the ships. Get 4 more, 6 more. That's a battle line of 8. Match that with the armored cruisers. Build a couple more armored cruisers, because we have a requirement in the Indian Ocean and Northeast Asia, because we have holdings in China and some of the African holdings. Although West and Southern Africa don't have a requirement, I would like to put something there. I was going to use the raiders for that, but I think I'm going to use the armored cruisers. May have overdone it slightly. I'm not going to have much left. But we'll move one to Northeast Asia, one to Indian Ocean, one to South Africa, South Africa. This is a new sea zone, so I may be missing it. Southern Africa, there it is. And West Africa. I'm curious, what is our base capacity? Is 15. Excellent. With the remaining money, yeah, that'll be too expensive. Have capacity out here. And the South Pacific. And Southeast. Wow. I think they've... Yeah, I think this is a lot more colonies and holdings than there used to be. I'll have to check in the other series, find out where that's at. And we're actually still short on the tonnage requirement in Northeast Asia. Send one more there. Send one to Southeast Asia. One into South Pacific. And one into Central Pacific. That'll cover everything that we have possession. Central Pacific. That uses up more than enough of our starting funds. We're not going to have very many ships being built. Done with the initial fleet. Little ship type. Okay, running into our first bug, I assume. And accidentally advancing 1 month and not having any ships under construction. That's alright. The game's brand new. Bugs are to be expected. I assume that was throwing errors for some of the legacy builds for the other nations. Definitely going to want more destroyers under construction. I'll get 24 going. Take up a decent amount of our monthly balance. Get our research organized, which I believe, yes. Unlike Rule the Waves 1, which had a limit of 10%, Rule the Waves 2 allows you 12%. Let's bump to high the things we have advantages in. Things I'm less interested in, submarines. Want to keep at least parity with torpedo technology. Light forces and torpedo warfare. I like to sacrifice it for the benefit of the others. Should probably prioritize naval guns, fire control always. Machinery development, hull construction, all the weight savings. Need turret and gun mountings. Ship design. I'm trying to remember what's in ship design. For now, yes. I'm gonna leave torpedo technology, explosive shells. Usually I have fewer things high priority. But I think I'm gonna try something a little different where, yeah, fewer things will stand out. Mostly we're deprioritizing these 4 technologies. But there are certain techs I want to get in each of these categories, and then I'm going to bump a bunch of them down to medium and leave fire control, maybe naval guns, and our armor subdivision and AP. I want ships that are tough. We're going to need lightweight armor. We're going to need the damage control. And we want to be able to get decent AP, armor piercing, as soon as possible. Doctrine. I'm not going to worry about getting the absolute best for any of this. I'm not going to optimize this. Not at this point, at least. But I'm going to do one of my favorite things, which is gunnery and night fighting. Actually, can you do all? Okay, that's what I thought. Gunnery and night fighting. Two of my favorite ones to have all the time. The gunnery especially early on, but the night fighting is always useful. Interesting. Not familiar with the fleet exercise yet. And we have no aircraft types because it hasn't been invented yet. Mobilization is fine. We'll go through the options. Actually, I do want to pause on hits. Actually, they have it separated out, so flotation damage warnings. I'm not too concerned about destroyers. Maybe I should be. I want Admiral's mode. Kind of leery of that because that's led to some silly options in Rule the Waves 1, but I kind of want to see how they handle it in Rule the Waves 2. New sighting, new report, torpedo hits, own ship sunken, serious messages, submarine aircraft sighted, air attack. Warnings. Not sure what this setting will do. I'll leave it off for now. Air combat, plane launch. Might switch that to automatic, we'll see. Pause on identification. No, in Rule the Waves 1 I had this on. We'll put it on and we'll see how obnoxious that gets. I don't really adjust the colors. A volume button, thank you. I want hits and explosions. I'll adjust these when we get into an actual combat, because I may want to toggle through these. And with that, I am pretty happy with where we're at. I'm going to call this episode to a close. We got our legacy fleet built, got them distributed across the world. We got our initial build out, which started the next episode. I may look at building some more, or I might just let our funds grow for a little bit and then do a major building program with some of the initial tech that comes out. Thank you for watching to the very end. Please leave a comment. Let me know what you think, what you'd like to see, what you don't like to see, how crazy I am to not be focusing on carriers as soon as possible. Anything you want to comment, please let me know. I'm happy to respond, and I'll catch you next time.